Sometimes when folks say they're making space for the grandkids, they do mean it from the heart. But with Cody Brown, it's beginning to look an awful lot less like family bonding, and a whole lot more like money maneuvering. Sister Wives Season 20 has served up the ultimate twist. Overnight, Cody Brown found daughter Truly, a name he hardly uttered in seasons 19. Now he can't get it out of his mouth. It's as if he's trying out for Father of the Year at the most opportune moment possible. And why just now? And just as the family's financial woes and legal troubles are piling up, Cody's new interest in Truly, and offering to give her her own special room in the house, seems less like a sentimental move and more like a masterfully staged courtroom strategy. Let's be real. A judge likely reminded him that child support does not simply vanish because he had emotionally checked out years ago. In the meantime, Robin Brown has entered this narrative with her typical gentle smile and tactful words. But if you hear her carefully, what she says is a different story. She still speaks of the other children as your children, not our children, and never quite succeeds in pretending an air of togetherness. Her newfound willingness to accommodate Truly isn't out of love. It appears more like planning. Because here's the thing. Each night Truly sleeps in their house is $1 less that will need to exit it. It's economic arithmetic masquerading as family time. This is not new for them either. Their history of property buying is a timeline that reads like a playbook of manipulation. From Coyote Pass to their new luxury residence. And that sarcastic name, Ego Manor. Every step appears calculated to shield assets, not construct a home. By October of 2024, Cody and Robin were making adorable little videos, discussing deep waters and family values, while secretly settling on a $2.1 million home purchase via a trust. And wouldn't you know it? That type of maneuver just happens to make child support obligations all neat and tidy. For them, that is. 2 weeks after that, Christine publicly shamed him, calling him a deadbeat dad. The timeline says it all. No confession or tersely edited TLC episode can overwhelm those realities. The math is ruthlessly straightforward. The less Cody seems to owe, the more Robin gets to settle into her ideal home. Their pretend concern for Truly has nothing to do with reconnecting a father-daughter relationship. It's about cutting expenses. And if you don't believe me, just look to Truly's most recent visit. Rather than provide her with a cozy, welcoming room, they herded her into Solomon's. Robin's 5 bedrooms, Ariella's spacious one included, were conveniently unavailable. It was a loud, unspoken message: Truly's comfort is not important. Christine and David's house has the opposite story to tell. Truly does look genuinely happy there. Out of the drama, the acting, and the fiscal games. Cody's selective parenting and Robin's chilly demeanor around the rest of the kids have been evident for years. This is not a broken family healing story. It's a publicity play, and the children are mere pawns on the board. Now, as Cody and Robin gloat about making room for Truly, we all know what room they're actually making. Room in their bank account. This is not co-parenting. It's accounting with a touch of performance art. And perhaps when Mykelti decided to create some distance between herself and this circus, she wasn't fleeing her family, she was running toward her freedom. If there's one thing Sister Wives viewers are going to unite over, it's a good old-fashioned relocation scandal. And currently, Mykelti Brown Padron's dramatic move has done just that. Half the crowd is calling her an attention seeker, while the other half is applauding her for finally breaking out of the Brown family's shadow and making an adult decision. Let's begin with the critics. To them, relocating 4 hours from the closest family isn't just a personal decision, it's an attention-seeking grasp for the limelight. Because, naturally, nothing shouts "look at me" more than wrestling with boxes, cranky children, and a U-Haul on a deadline. If the show were indeed about attention, let's get real. A live stream from her sofa would have been much simpler. But here's the more realistic version of things. Mykelti is not pursuing fame. She's breaking free from a lifetime career as the Brown family middle manager. A role nobody auditioned for, but somebody always gets stuck with. And wouldn't you know it, the minute she moves away from that exhausting position, Christine finally drags Cody into court for child support. It's as if a person had to release before the real responsibility could start. There's also a very practical reason behind the move. Tony, McKelty's husband, works in the chess world as a coach and content creator. The city they're headed to happens to be a chess hub in the US. It's not about chasing fame, it's about chasing opportunity. Yes, the internet adores a touch of sarcasm. Some people are already joking about Tony as the next Bobby Fischer, perhaps even imagining the family dog sporting a wee crown when he does. In actuality, though, chess is a legitimate, stable career, and honestly, it's less crazy than life on TLC. And don't minimize this, relocating with tiny children is no trivial endeavor. That's not drama seeking. That's courage, dedication, and a firm commitment to what matters most. McKelty is prioritizing her marriage, her children, and her mental well-being. Those three things have long been on the Brown family endangered species list. Yes, 4 hours isn't so far as down the street, but it's not on the other side of the nation either. In relation to the miles most of the siblings are apart across the Southwest, it's practically around the corner. And there's something symbolic here too. Leaving home isn't always about distance. It's about taking back control. For someone like McKelty, stepping away from the family web isn't a rejection. It's a declaration, I'm my own person now. Even if she circles back someday, this moment matters. Christine may have dreamed of having all her kids clustered in Utah, but McKelty's life isn't her mom's blueprint anymore. She's an adult with a husband, kids, bills, and agency. Her choices don't have to orbit anyone's emotional needs. The verdict? This is not a cry for help, or some wild impulse. It's a young woman shaking off the haze and deciding on her own terms. From the cameras, the soap operas, and one very self-proclaimed patriarch, who still believes the world revolves around him. And on the topic of family dynamics, Cody can take all the guilt as the villain of the show. But what if the silent manipulator has been standing alongside him the entire time? Robin Brown's words have always been telling, and this week she slipped again. She spoke of having enough room for our kids and your kids. A subtle difference in wording, but an enormous glimpse into how she actually perceives things. Our kids refers to Solomon, Ariella, and the 3 she brought from her previous marriage. Your kids refers to the rest. The ones who were raised in that house but never quite fit into her neatly fabricated picture of family life. Even the rules of the house made the separation painfully evident. Who would ever forget that notorious refrigerator note? The one that instructed the first Brown children to request permission before they could eat food, in a house their father paid for, stocked, and allegedly shared. It's not a note on a fridge. It's a line in the sand. It was such a miserly policy, it would have made old Ebenezer Scrooge blush. Robin Brown's notorious refrigerator rule, the one where her stepchildren needed to ask permission to have food in their own father's home, came bundled with the thinnest excuse possible. My kids have special dietary needs. The implicit message, the rest of them aren't special enough. Now sure, on the surface it's just a snack rule, but anyone who's ever lived in a blended family knows. Those little things reveal the big truths. That refrigerator wasn't just locked to protect gluten-free crackers. It symbolized something much colder. Robin's refusal to truly embrace Cody's other children. While the other wives went out of their way to accommodate plural marriage, sacrificing, adjusting, sharing, Robin arrived with her own playbook. No compromises. No shared traditions. Only her house, her rules, her kids. Everyone else, guests who should likely knock before coming in. Even in the pandemic, when the family had long-standing group traditions, Robin skipped out. We should just do it on Zoom, she said, keeping her own circle intimate while everyone else stretched themselves thin trying to keep family afloat. Include the full-time nanny to manage her sensitive brood, and you begin to see a very intentional pattern. The payoff? A broken home in which love and access were doled out as if they were government coupons. Robin's 5 children were touted as the good kids, the obedient ones, the privileged ones. The others were declared difficult, disrespectful, or too independent to be brought into compliance with the new family hierarchy. And Cody, always the enabler, went along. Together they built a family hierarchy where being loud, independent, or unwilling to worship at the altar of Coyote Pass earned you exile. Two adults preaching unity on TV while quietly dividing their family at home. It's as hypocritical as it is unchristian. No one embodies the heartbreak of that dynamic more than Truly Brown. Her dad's affection has been sold for pieces of property and a couple of tactfully worded interviews. She has her mom, David, and a warm extended family, but not the father who ought to have been present in the first place. In the meantime, Robin's doll collection, that's right, her dolls has more room and attention than Truly ever had. And amidst all this, the older kids have been incredibly disciplined. They've lived this chill behind the scenes. They've suffered through the rejection, the favoritism, and the gradual reworking of family history aimed at characterizing them and their mothers as the problem. The truth that they haven't made it public how much they have gone through isn't an indication that Robin won. It's a sign of their decency, their strength. A decency in desperate need from the woman who continues to call herself the obedient wife. So when Robin whines tearfully about being kicked off the Brown family island, let's be honest, she wasn't kicked off. She staked a claim to the island, fenced it in, and then whined about being all alone in there. And Cody, he acted his part fabulously. The man who might have had compassion for his older kids, opted instead to draw the wagons around a woman whose fridge policy is the metaphysical equivalent of her heart, locked, cold, and always needing clearance to gain admittance. At the same time, the world is busy hailing Christine Brown's glow-up, her freedom, her happiness. And make no mistake, she is entitled to it. But recently, even that fairy tale story is beginning to crack slightly at the seams. As the aura around Christine's freedom falters, a more nuanced reality is breaking through. Despite all her courage, Christine is not impervious to the same weaknesses she once criticized in Cody. Her recent tantrum over McKelty and the grandkids relocating raised some eyebrows. Christine has always battled for the right to live life on her own terms. But now, presented with her daughter doing the same, some fans catch a whiff of hypocrisy. You know, Christine Brown's tale isn't as easy as the happily ever after so many of us fans like to think of. Consider, for instance, something that her daughter Gwendolyn once shared. Christine feels that when her children reach 18, it's time to give them a suitcase and send them out into the world. Sound familiar? It should. That's the same philosophy that Cody once employed to defend retreating from his older kids. The only difference is Christine serves it up with a smile and a casserole rather than a lecture. This isn't even a new revelation. Old school viewers will recall Christine saying, right on camera, that 18 was the age cut off for living at home. It was jarring then, and it's jarring now. Because the truth is, parenting doesn't stop just because the law says a child is legally an adult. For a lot of families, that kind of "you're on your own now" message feels a lot less like empowerment, and a lot more like being quietly abandoned. And yet, this is where it gets tricky. Christine is not the villain in this. She can be both a woman who survived a very destructive marriage, and a mother who sometimes puts on the same cold detachment she was subject to. Living within a system that rewards male ego and female compliance does not negate the patterns it leaves in its wake. Since leaving Cody, we've seen flashes of this tension play out in real time. The way she told Truly about the divorce, awkward, rushed, and emotionally clumsy. Her quick statement to the kids that they'd just have to get used to her relationship with David. And the sharper, almost brittle tone she's had at times this season. None of that negates her courage. It was true bravery to leave a marriage of decades and enter a new life. But what it does show is that recovery does not occur in a single night. Christine still has emotional wounds from years of being in a family system that held everyone back. Even David's teasing comment, "Cody never did anything for you, but I will," had an edge to it. Was it banter, or a small glimpse into a familiar pattern packaged in a new way? Christine's so-called mean streak didn't appear out of nowhere. It was always there, hidden behind her cheerful, long-suffering persona. Now that she no longer has to play the role of the perfect plural wife, we're seeing a more unfiltered version of her, petty at times, wounded often, but deeply human. And truly, that's the contradiction of Christine Brown. She's at once inspiring and infuriating, sturdy and imperfect, hypocritical and humane. Her freedom doesn't make her a saint. It makes her incompletion. And in that imperfection, bitter, fearless, and self-contradictory, is the most authentic page of her tale to date. Of course, her newest fight isn't with Cody or Robin. It's with a location: North Carolina. Christine's increasing disdain for North Carolina is beginning to ring almost theatrically. She speaks of it as though the state itself had done her wrong, as though the beaches, the mountain breezes, and the utterly innocent barbecue personally betrayed her. But this isn't actually about geography. It's about loss. Christine gave it her all to establish a home base in Utah, somewhere she dreamed of going back to after all those involuntary moves at Cody's behest. Utah stood for stability, belonging, an opportunity to set roots after decades of being plucked out of the ground. So, picture the pain of seeing her kids now box up their belongings. Not because Cody insisted, but because they wanted to. McKelty, Tony, and the grandbabies off to North Carolina isn't merely another relocation. It's a lesson that home can't be made to revolve around someone, even a mom. Christine does not dislike the state of North Carolina. What she dislikes is what it represents: her children creating lives out of reach from her. And for a woman who spent decades feeling out of control, that can seem a bitter irony. We can finally move forward now that buying land in North Carolina is on the table, especially since Janelle and Maddie are expanding their homestead there. But for Christine, the sting isn't just about miles on a map. It's about feeling left behind. Being a mother has always been the core of who she was. For years, Christine's identity centered on raising her kids, keeping the family together, being that stable core everyone could rotate around. So seeing her children create lives away from her isn't just bittersweet, it hurts deeply. It is like losing a role that defined her. Her response, in all honesty, is understandable. The pain of an empty nest is something to which most parents can sympathize. But although her sentiment is justified, her anger with the whole state of North Carolina, let's be honest, seems a bit misplaced. North Carolina, after all, is a lovely state. And let's not be naive to suggest Utah, with all its cultural expectations and tight-knit moral surveillance, is precisely the easiest option either. Yes, sure, Christine was joking, at least in part. But those words suggest something true beneath: irritation that the world she created is changing without her. When Wenlin, Isabel, Truly, and Christine went to North Carolina, she saw it firsthand. And even as she's now living more truly than ever before, the family's center of gravity has quietly shifted east. Janelle and Maddie's vision of building a communal life on shared land there has an echo of something familiar. It mirrors the kind of unity Christine once dreamed of at Coyote Pass, but never actually experienced. This time, though, it's not a husband pulling away. It's her kids. They're staying with her for 10 days, a temporary stay, but symbolic nonetheless. Perhaps in time she'll release the anger and accept the new reality. After all, true freedom isn't merely about exiting a marriage, it's about not begrudging the places your loved ones find to reside. And quite frankly, with how beautiful North Carolina is, it's difficult to not envision Christine ultimately purchasing a small vacation home there herself. Meanwhile, in Robin Brown's world, words are saying more than tears ever would. When Robin used the word "your kids" rather than "our kids," it wasn't a slip. It was a glimpse behind the curtain of the way she's always perceived the family. Robin has a habit of redefining the term family to her own comfort. But that specific moment, where "our kids" just turned into "your kids" in one statement while speaking to Cody, was particularly revealing. That wasn't a coincidence. That was a quiet admission. She's always drawn lines between her home and everyone else's. This time she just quit feigning ignorance. The wording "your kids" appeared again later in the episode, in plain sight, distinguishing other wives' children from her own self-selected inner circle. And yet this is the same woman who cries about the family not uniting on Coyote Pass, a family she doesn't even acknowledge with words anymore. Her words of unity ring emptier each episode, particularly when her actions speak otherwise. What truly puts the nail in the coffin is the way she handles space. Robin's dainty porcelain doll collection, of course, has its own room. But Truly Brown, a real-life kid, does not. When Cody hinted that Truly would come by more if she had her own space, Robin consented with words. But her expression, that little eye roll, spoke volumes. At this point, it's difficult not to speculate that she's just so tired of pretending to care if Truly comes. And the audience is tired of pretending to care that she does. To Robin, nothing in housing ever simply needs to be practical. It's always something of a moral choice in disguise that involves negotiating. Her alleged reluctance regarding Cody's grand relocation scheme was a reenactment of the same script she applied during the move to Flagstaff, where her need for a six-bedroom house just so conveniently landed her a mansion. By this time, the routine is all too well known. Robin's grudging sighs, and then, as if on a timer, a move into something much more upscale. Because nothing screams fiscal restraint, mother of five, like stepping into a freshly minted luxury mansion. And then, of course, there's Cody, our perpetually unreliable narrator, who allows the mask to slip just far enough for the truth to peek out. "Let's go get a new house you love," he says. But Robin, ever sensitive to how she'd like to be perceived, cuts in quick to shine up the lines. "Get a house we both love," she clarifies. But by then, of course, the moment's blown wide open already. We've seen behind the curtain. This isn't a collaborative decision. This is her play. The decision was made a long time ago before cameras started rolling. What we're given is just an act, painstakingly choreographed for the audience. Meanwhile, Truly's absence from that house tells a story louder than any confessional. Christine's own book spells it out clearly. Truly doesn't want to visit. And really, who could blame her? The so-called guest space for her isn't even connected to the main house. It's hard to feel wanted when you're literally separated by walls. And then there's the timing. Convenient, at best. All of this comes to a head around the time Christine starts legal action to obtain child support, and around the time Cody briefly thought about a paternity test. Because nothing expresses loving father like doubting your own daughter's genetic makeup to not have to pay for her upkeep. And what about Robin? She's come quite a distance from the time the family life fell apart. The shaking hands, the shaking voice, the tear-stained complaints of being excluded are all gone. In their place stands someone who no longer even pretends to care for children. She never really considered her own. That your kid slip wasn't a slip. It was an accidental flash of truth. Her past tears over her children being excluded now sound insincere, because she's the one who constructed the walls to start with. And perhaps the most obvious indicator of all was sitting on the fridge the whole time, that infamous note scrawled in permanent ink, telling the older children not to eat in her house without asking. Robin didn't just draw a line. She wrote it down, laminated it, and posted it somewhere that no one could possibly avoid seeing. And then there's Cody. He lost a son, dismissed his daughter's tears, and yet manages to portray himself as the victim. There is a particular kind of heartbreak one feels when seeing the Brown children cry. Not the kind of TV tear fest. Real ones. The profound, heavy in the gut kind brought on by being consistently let down by the sole person who had a duty to safeguard them. Seeing Madison lose it in last night's episode brings us back to those traumatic moments. Garrison and Gabe's trembling voices as they implored their dad to simply show up. Isabel sobbing when he didn't come to her surgery. Gwendolyn quietly confessing she had wished little Arabiella could have the father she never did. One after another, the Brown children have cried on television. And each time it all leads back to one man, Cody, who just can't quite face himself in truth. It's only been a few weeks since Garrison's passing. You'd think such a devastating tragedy would humble a father, maybe soften him, maybe spark the smallest glimmer of change. But not here. Cody has remained trapped in the same cold, distant performance. No calling out to his older kids. No open arms. No acts of warmth. Only the same silence. Months since the funeral, Janelle's children are still emotionally shut off, and Robin's residence persists in its quiet isolation, walled off from everyone else. Even death has not melted ice in Cody Brown's heart. It's cruel in the way cinematic it is. On one hand, we have his children, his surviving children, screaming for reconciliation. On the other, Cody just stands there with his arms crossed, bitterly insisting that reconciliation must occur on his terms. The irony couldn't be more biting. The same man who used to deliver lengthy family homilies on religion, loyalty, and cohesiveness can't even manage to do the one thing that really matters: be a father when it matters most. And that's why Madison's tears land so hard. She's never been dramatic, just like her mom Janelle. She never lets her emotions get the better of her. So when someone like Madison loses it, it says a lot. Madison was always the rock. Calm, stable. The quiet fulcrum in a family constructed on loose sand. But loss doesn't discriminate. When her brother passed away and her parents' marriage finally collapsed, even her tough armor broke. This was the time a dad should have intervened. A hug, a comforting word. Even one of those hackneyed lectures Cody used to deliver about bonds that last an eternity would have been something. But he didn't offer her anything. Not a word. Not a movement. Just silence. And that silence was incredibly loud. Then came his latest grievance. A classic Cody move. He was hurt because Madison supposedly told Janelle that he had never really loved her. The wounded narcissism there is almost impressive in its predictability. Any father with even a drop of emotional maturity would understand that children, especially daughters close to their mothers, will share their honest feelings. That's not betrayal. That's trust. But Cody resides not in the realm of reason. He resides in the echo chamber of ego. I have a relationship through my wife with the children, he explains, as if that's something to boast about. What it actually indicates is all that is frayed. In a plural marriage, where the father spends his time like pie slices, the kids naturally gravitate towards the one parent who's always there, their mother. Most fathers would find that beautiful. Cody finds that a personal affront. Even today, he demands blind obedience from the very children he abandoned. And the saddest part, a lot of them would forgive him immediately if he'd just take responsibility for his mistakes. But that's something Cody Brown has never been capable of. Apologies take self-reflection. He's always fled from that. And then, as if to rub it in, Madison, ever the peacemaker, begins taking responsibility for their distance. But here's the thing. She isn't at fault. No child, no matter their age, 8 or 38, should ever be the one to sustain a relationship their parent forfeited. That was his responsibility. Show up, love them. Apologize when you screw up. That's it. Cody didn't do it. Instead, he used his pride as a club and swathed it in protectiveness of self-pity. The state of my family is anarchy right now, he complains. But it wasn't polygamy that destroyed this family. It's him. The man who asked for loyalty and delivered nothing. As his children wail for the father they should have had, Cody sulkily spends his days lamenting a lack of respect and dreaming up fantasy situations in which anyone is loving Robin the way he believes she should be loved. It's not only bad parenting, it's neglect. It's a betrayal of the very role he once professed to thunder about so publicly. Cody Brown lost more than a son. He's losing his whole family. And the tragedy, the true gut blow, is that he still does not see it. This is not gossip. This is sorrow. Pure and simple. And the proof? It's written across the faces of his children.